The 96th edition of the Roy's Boys podcast starts right now.
It's not about you. It's about that name on the front of your jersey.
And ready on his second attempt. That one is no good. They battle for it. Loose ball. Recovered Marvin. He scores. Pushes into Hubert Davis. 8 seconds. Davis trying to get free. Over to Fox. Fox, baseline. Up for the shot. Good. Off the glass. Oklahoma calls timeout. But the game is over. The game is over. Carolina has upset number 1 Oklahoma.
With 20 seconds left to play. Goes back to Michael Jordan. Jumper from out on the left. Good. 63, 62, 13, 12, 11. Georgetown with one timeout. Fred Brown looking. Oh, way to Worthy. Worthy 5. The Tar Heels are going to win the national championship.
Rebounded by Weber. Michigan out of timeout. Weber front court. Carolina with foul. He takes the timeout. They're out of timeout. Technical foul. Technical foul. Brown gets it into Williams. Here comes Williams front court. Williams on the drive. Gets it back out the head. Long outside shot. Short rebounded. No! It's over. Carolina has won the national championship. How about them Tar Heels? They are the national champions.
That's it! Make room for 2017. The Tar Heels are the national daggum champions.
That's what it's all about right there. That's on the floor. That's on your shirt. That's in your heart. That's why we're all here.
This is the Roy's Boys podcast with your host, Joshua Marlowe.
Hey everybody, welcome into another edition of the Roy's Boys podcast. We are powered by Carolina Electrical Services. And on this episode, we are not going to be either previewing a game or recapping a game. Today,
Stop it. No way.
Yeah.
An in-season podcast where we don't preview or recap a game. This is stunning.
this is
Wow.
monumental change for the pod.
Indeed.
Today we are going to look at our all-decade team for Carolina basketball. It is New Year's Eve. So 2020 is tomorrow. That means from 2000, well, whatever decade they want to call this, millennium, whatever.
It's okay.
It's ending.
Decade. Millennium would be a 1,000-year
Yeah.
period. That would be 3,000. We would have done that. Which, can you imagine whoever is going to have to do the players of the millennium? Good luck.
It'll be
Good luck to ya.
it'll be our grandkids because they're not going to have any
Good
lives
luck
like
to
their
ya.
fathers or their grandfathers.
Okay, that will not be your grandkids.
Okay,
that
maybe
will
great-
be your great
Maybe.
grandkids.
Um,
They might not even know who Roy Williams is, which will be very, very shocking.
I don't want to imagine a world where someone doesn't know who Roy Williams is. I mean, the greatest coach of in the history of basketball. Yeah,
Whoa.
someone's got to know that.
Whoa, what a way to start this
Yeah,
podcast out, by
that's
the
going to
way.
get some stuff going.
So
right
we know who the coach of the decade clearly
I
is,
mean,
considering he was
he's
the only coach
I
of the
mean-
decade. Hey, we got Steve Robinson in there with 2 substitute games. Maybe it's a debate.
And there were fans on Twitter in both of those instances that, I thought the team responded better to his leadership. Maybe he's the guy.
God, please don't bring those back up. That's we've had enough of that.
But so it's a change. It should be pretty fun.
Yes,
I'm pretty excited about this because
that's how you know it's going to be fun.
It was difficult to narrow down five players that I'd go with to start a game for me because this was another excellent decade for Carolina basketball. You got to think it started out with this team appearing in the NIT. They're closing out the decade. Right now the team's at 8-5, but we're feeling a lot better than we were a couple weeks ago. Mixed in between there, 4 Elite Eights, 2 Final Fours, 2 national championship game appearances. Of course, they cut down the nets in 2017. So even after a slow start to the decade in terms of NCAA production for what this program is accustomed to doing, it was still a very winning decade for Carolina, which is highlighted by some very great players.
Oh yeah, I mean this is one of those decades that you're going to look back on, and I mean if you kind of just do the comparisons, I mean the prior decade, I think, gets a nod. But, I mean, if you kind of compare it with the 90s, I mean, I don't know. Like, it's pretty tough to debate. I still think that while it may not have looked early on like this was going to be a 10-year run that would live up to the Carolina standard, they did a good job in the final 5 years closing it the way that they were supposed to. And I mean, it wasn't all their fault. 2012, we thought, okay, this is definitely a title team. And you get the injury to Kendall Marshall in the tournament that pretty much changed everything. So, I think it's another great era. That's the great thing about Carolina basketball.
It's timeless.
You have, with these types of things, 10 years, it's such a long amount of time. You're always going to have something that's going to be successful. Like, this is going to be tough because you have so many great players. It's not like maybe some of the other ones, if you did this podcast for another team or even when you do it for football, you're not going to have those periods of time where you're going to be like, wow. I mean, we're putting players on the list that wouldn't even be remotely close to any of the all-time list. Although football, I still think there's a pretty good amount. We're going to be doing a football one later. But, no, with basketball, I mean, you're talking about 5 guys that we're going to put on this list here today that definitely deserve. I mean, they'll be talked about for a very long time.
Yeah, and so you made the comparison real quick before we get into our list to, the last decade probably gets the nod from 2009 or from 2000 to 2009. And you got to think that decade started with that decade had an 8-20 year in it, a 19-16 year in it. But Roy Williams comes home, but that's the thing is when you talk about how long the decade is, because the beginning of that decade was not very good. But Roy Williams came back to Carolina, restored the program back to where it needs to be. And so that's why, when you think about great decades of Carolina basketball, that one, of course, does come to mind.
Yeah, how about that? 8-20. You had the really just the whole Matt Doherty era that a lot of people like to frown upon. But then you closed it starting in 2006 with Tyler Hansborough coming in and being as good as he was, probably, honestly, your best statistical player in program history. And then you get 2 national championships. Yeah, that's just it's weird, the ebbs and flows sometimes for the program, but it's why it's so exciting to do a podcast like this.
Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and get into our list. And the point guard position is where I had the most trouble because
I would think so. Yes,
there's so many great point guards that Carolina had in this decade alone. You had Kendall Marshall, Marcus Page, Joel Berry, Kobe White, and then before the injury, Cole Anthony, in some people's eyes, could have made an argument to be on this list because of how good his career started.
Right. I'm going to disagree with that.
Well, it was premature, but the point guard play, even in the early years of this decade, still was never really frowned upon because, I mean, Carolina's always going to have good point guard play. We've even seen it now currently with Cole Anthony being hurt. We've seen Jeremiah Francis emerge as a guy that's going to be he's
there. There's the debate.
There's a guy that's going to be a contributor for not only this year but for years to come. Ultimately, my guy that I want running my team is Marcus Page. I think the thing I had to when I went down and did this, I had to, and as hard as it was, remove my emotions from this.
That's
because,
impossible.
Emotionally tied to Marcus Page as much as any player in Carolina basketball. I think all of us as fans are because he was the face of the team when the program was going through the NCAA investigation, when Roy Williams was getting attacked by former players and recruiting rivals on the recruiting circuit and whatnot. We could always count on Marcus Page bringing his competitiveness to every game and giving us a chance to win. His sophomore year was a joy to watch one individual guy because he was our offense for that whole entire year. If he played well, Carolina had a chance to win. If he didn't play well, then a lot of times Carolina got beat. And so, statistically, he's up there. Most all-time three-pointers made.
Most points in the decade.
Yeah, most points he scored in the decade. I just, was a first-team All-ACC, a second-team All-American, ACC Most Improved Player. So he did so much on the court, but he also, was the face of the program and was a leader on and off the floor, and that's something that you just can't understate.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think I had to go with Joel just because I like him bringing the ball up a little bit more than Marcus. I like the aggressive mindset that Joel had. I like the fact that he was attacking the basket like he was. And, I think that he flowed really well out of the point guard position. And the thing about Joel Berry is when you go back and look at Joel's statistics, I think a lot of people, with his career overlapping with Marcus Page's, they don't think that his statistics really are that great. But I think, you look at it and, let's be real honest. The fact that, he's within I think like 30 points in his career of Marcus Page's number. So, Joel was a really good combo, I'm not going to say combo point guard, but he was a guy that not only was he aggressive at attacking the basket and could finish himself, he would get others involved as well. So I lean Joel Berry. I think it's real close, and you can kind of interchange him and Marcus Page wherever you want to put him. But, Joel Berry, I think, is one of those guys that has to be on this list. Now, the thing that I want to bring up really quickly at point guard, I know that most people will probably laugh it off and say, how would you go with him over over Joel Berry, Marcus Page, and Kendall Marshall? Dude, Kobe White deserves some respect here because what he did in his 1 year at Carolina, first of all, nobody saw it coming. And, we thought it would take him some time. Granted, he came in as a guy that, set the state record for points scored at the high school level here in the state of North Carolina. Nobody foresaw what he did last year. He was the reason that Carolina team was as good as they were. Now, it helped that you got, a sensational year from Cam Johnson, and Luke May was still Luke May, but Kobe White deserves some respect here. And I just don't feel like when people look at their all-decade team, it seems to me like nobody is even thinking about Kobe White, and he at least deserves to be talked about a little bit.
Yeah, no, he had one of the more productive freshman years in Carolina basketball. There was a time during the ACC part of the schedule where he was getting comparisons to Phil Ford when Phil Ford played for Dean Smith back in the 70s. And this wasn't from lifelong Tar Heel fans. This was from media that has covered the program for that extended period of a time. Just kind of shows just how special of a player Kobe White is. And it's no surprise that he is thriving at the NBA. Shooting guard, you mentioned Joel Berry. I've got him listed at shooting guard. Well, when I listed him and Marcus Page as point guard / shooting guard.
Interchangeable.
Because they're interchangeable pieces on the court. And Berry could have been you could make the argument, well, this is because, the emotions that you have for what he did as a Carolina player. But also, he still had a lot of successful accolades that he got in his time at Carolina. Was the ACC tournament MVP when they won the ACC tournament in 2016. He, of course, led Carolina to the 2017 Final Four, was the most outstanding player in that Final Four. And then he was also awarded the Dean Smith Most Valuable Player Award his senior year, became the first player since Bill Walton to score 20 or more points in back-to-back national championship games. He also had the legendary Senior Day speech. And Joel was just a guy that, as a freshman, I was really excited about. I kind of compared him to a less fast version of Ty Lawson with the way that he was going to be able to get down the court and be very aggressive and use his body to finish in contact. And this was a guy that could do that, but the year that in both championship years and even 2017, he was a guy that was willing to take the big shot and could make the big shot. His competitiveness and the fierceness when he competed was one thing that Roy Williams always mentioned whenever he had a big game and talked about was he's just a fearless competitor. He got tough little nut as much as any player.
He's a tough little nut, man.
As much as any players you ever heard Roy Williams use that little term when he uses, and it's always when he says that is a compliment, in the best way you can get a compliment from your head coach. And so it's impossible to have a list that does not include Joel Berry because kind of like Marcus Page, became the face of a program, another 4-year guy, a guy that we as fans got to connect with emotionally. This is a guy that, when he won the national championship, I cried. Well, his senior night, when they lost on the buzzer beater by Miami, I got a little teary-eyed because this is a guy that I grew to love play. Him and Marcus Page, I go back and forth on who's my favorite player.